Hi, fellow birdies. Welcome to a special edition of my writing channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be reading aloud the first couple scenes in my book. I'm currently debating as to whether I should go ahead and set up an Audible version for it. And I'm trying to decide if I should do it myself or if I should hire out for it. Please give your feedback as to whether you prefer me to do it or, have me hire out in the comments below. Now, Chapter 1. It was just past noon, according to the stone sundial in the courtyard, and a horde of locusts seemed to have descended upon the halls of the Miel family. The horde attired itself in silken tunics and wide, pasted-on smiles. Sweet nothings and claims of honor came from every lip, all the better to conceal the knives that would strike when their victim was at their most vulnerable. Rian would have preferred the locusts. There was no way around it, though. Their liege, Lord Genthru Tolthor, had come to show his appreciation and make plans for the coming year. And with him came what seemed like half the nobility of the kingdom of Raskor. Each of the noble families under Lord Genthru had sent representatives, cousins, and lesser members of their family to ensure no agreement or the like would be made without their valued advice. Of course, it wasn't like they could come alone. Each brought an entourage of servants to aid them and attend to the sort of matters that no one would dare sully themselves with. Accounting, supplies, and other matters of necessity, but not glamour. The scents of various perfumes filled the feasting hall, cloying and oversweet, mixing together into a chalky reek that threatened to overwhelm the more honest smell of roasting mutton and ham. Scratchy whisperings of robes trailed past him as the teeming multitude slipped into their seats at the great table, each one eyeing their assigned spot and comparing it to those of others. One particular woman had a wide smirk out upon her face at how close she was to the head of the table. She spared a moment to sneer at less fortunate rivals before turning her attention to the thickly bearded man sipping at his goblet beside her. She inclined her head to him politely. "I must say, you have certainly outdone yourselves this year. The decorations are exquisite, and the wine is warm all the way down. Of course, we would not have it any other way. Broke out some of our finest stock just for the occasion. More to the better." Setting down the drink, Uncle Garion settled back in his seat with a satisfied groan. "Tell me, how is your journey through our southern fields?" The woman, whose name escaped Rian, someone from the Gazif family perhaps, held her goblet gently, letting the red liquid swirl inside. The smile on her thin and pale face was friendly, but the way her eyes narrowed gave a feeling like that of a spider looking at the fly flitting near its web. The land was gorgeous, golden wheat as far as the eye could see, corn as high as my head and free of bandits besides. But sometimes my carriage was fit to shaking, she chuckled lightly, twirling a lock of her long brown hair around her finger. "I wonder if I'm still bumping about," I confessed. Uncle Garion chortled right along with her before lowering his voice, as if he were confiding a secret with his words. "Well, we are careful to make sure that the trade roads are smooth and flat, but the farmers are not so attentive with their own. Which route did you take to get here?" Polite conversation with the ease of old friends gabbing over no more than the bumpiness of a road. But Rian knew that someone would chastise him if he didn't pay the closest attention to the discussion. You could see the man in his mind's eye, sternly regarding with a pointed, "Look deeper, young lord." From where he sat, a couple seats further down the table from the pair, Rian sipped at his own beverage, trying to figure out what the Gazif noble was really trying to achieve. Servers with the house meal crests over their tunics placed the first course of garnished ham beside them, making the slightest whisper of sound in their wake. The woman tapped her chin thoughtfully as she cut the food into little pieces before consuming them one by one. "I do not recall the route myself, although I do know that we started at the Rat's Gate and made our way as quick as we could along the main thoroughfares. But what concerns me is whether the roads are truly built for transporting what we ship. A few bumps will not harm me. The strong must grin and bear it, after all. But some of our cargo is volatile. It would become worthless if jarred too much." "Ah, that would be troubling. Do not worry too much, Lord Garion," she said with a smile, squeezing his shoulder as her voice dropped to a low purr. "House Gazif and House Meal have been friendly for generations. Half our trade goes to the Rat's Gate. In honor of this bond, could we perhaps request just a bit more for our cargo? Not too much, just enough to make up for the times it is damaged." Uncle Garion stroked his beard thoughtfully before nodding. I have not heard any complaints in the caravan masters, but we truly value our long friendship with the Gazee family. All 5 years of it. It might be a little inconvenient, but if it is as bad as you say, we can reroute your caravans to come through the goat's patch to the northeast. He grinned, perhaps with a little too much teeth. If you like, Agatha, I can even let your grand-aunt know that the request was made on your behalf. Her face paled more and more at each word he spoke. That will not be necessary, she quickly said. Much like us, our caravans are familiar with enduring the hardships we face. As Agatha further backpedaled in her panic, Rian took a sip of wine to cover his own smile. Of course she didn't want that to happen. She was trying to manipulate and cajole in an effort to get a better trade deal from House Miel, not cause a delay in their own endeavors. If the Gazif matriarch received word of her causing their caravans to take a less profitable route, to say she would be furious is an understatement. Such trickery. He sighed. Yet this was typical for the nobility. Intrigue, double-dealing, and manipulation were tools they all used. The banners of all the noble houses underneath the Miel family flew overhead today, bright in the afternoon sun. Yet the position of each had been carefully considered for just the sort of message House Miel wanted to send. They had summoned some of the men-at-arms from the borders to swell the ranks at Houndstooth, the family citadel. Each weapon and armor gleamed with polish, all to give the impression of greater strength and power. As his mother explained to him, subtle strength had its place, but to be respected, one must not only be strong, but one must appear strong. He continued his meal, sitting with a patient sort of laziness like that of a chimera resting on the eastern plains, fat from its kill. Or, well, he hoped he appeared that way. Cold and unaffected, someone nobody would dare bother unnecessarily. Far better than them noticing the nervousness that lurked behind his eyes. Vultures preyed on such. The scent of crushed berries filled the air with a welcoming aroma. Why, hello there, Rian, came the lilting voice of the woman sitting herself beside him. She was perhaps a few years beyond him, with wavy dark hair that framed a somewhat chubby face. Even as he strained to recall her, she grinned at him. It has been quite a while, has it not? It took a moment, but the small scar under her left eye caught his gaze and jogged his memory. Skrilla, it is good to see you once again. Her smile widened. You as well. It's been far too long. After a draught of wine, she set the goblet back on the table with a thump and leaned closer to him. And what have you been up to lately? Breen hid a frown with a bite of ham. At first, because of the Gazif's main branch, with a voluptuous figure that was hardly hidden by her red silken dress. Skrilla had the appearance of a teasing maiden, but he recalled from experience there was a more conniving side to her. Some of her tricks, he remembered, had been quite nasty. I have been busy with my studies in the art, and will be taking the Mage trials very soon. He decided to change the subject before she could press further. But my tales are far less interesting than yours, I am certain. Your son be 2 years of age now. How is he? Her eyes lit up, each the pale blue shade of the summer bird's flying outside. Oh, he's just the sweetest little thing you could possibly imagine. He's yet to truly grasp her language, but he is learning. It is such a shame that you could not meet him today. He was up to his father, of course. This sort of gathering is no place for one so small. Of course, you will know what it is like when you have your own. Have you and your family decided who you will be wed to? Not yet. We have not discussed the matter in detail. She leaned closer, which did rather interesting things to her figure. He averted his eyes, both for both propriety, and his face not resembling the color of wheat. Well, she whispered conspiratorially, I suggest you pay close attention and keep in mind what you truly want. We might find yourself marrying an old goat for the sake of your family. As she trailed off, the bitterness in her words caused sympathy to swell within Rian. She might be a Gazif and thus a rival of House Miel. But he understood what it was like to have to endure unpleasant things for the good of the family. How are you doing? It is difficult sometimes, she admitted. I want to marry someone handsome, clever, charming. Still, it helps to have someone to talk to. She looked at him, and for all his memories of trickery, she seemed so small and slight, vulnerable. How about you? What sort of person would you like to marry? Before I could respond, there's a tap on his shoulder. "My apologies, my lord," came the grave voice of Chancellor Swordspinner, an equally grave man in a tunic somewhat like that of like the servants, but finely embroidered and several shades lighter. "However, we need to discuss a small matter with the travel plans for tomorrow." Rian frowned, but turned to the one beside him. "My apologies, but I must be off. I'll remember your advice, though." Skrilla smiled sadly. "That is all I can ask." Soren nodded to her in turn before leading away from the table. They made their way through a crowd of various servants and courtiers, only about a third bearing the house meal colors. Chancellor Soren had been serving the family since Rian was learning his first words, but he still moved with the grace and alacrity of a man half his age. He smoothly cut through the multitude surrounding them without so much as a need to slow. He took them to a small door off to the side, one whose dark colorations matched the stone so well that it was almost invisible at first glance. At the sight of them, the guard beside it stood aside, bowed deeply, and opened it without a word. They made their way through, the door shutting behind them with a soft click. Out of sight of the guests now, Rian frowned and turned toward Soren. "Correct me if I'm mistaken, but we handled all the travel arrangements last week, did we not?" "Ah, you remembered." Approval flitted briefly across the man's visage, the stern lines of proud middle age quirking into a small smile. "Yes, we did. But you look rather uncomfortable out there, so I thought it best to give you the opportunity to relax." Rian weighed Soren's words. They didn't seem false, but given the importance of the meeting, he sighed. "She wanted something from me, I take it, and I failed to notice." "Of course." He continued leading them through far smaller and less grand hallways, the torchlight glimmering against the sky blue of his tunic. "People do not spill their hearts out to someone they barely know for no good reason. She's looking to lower your guard and get something from you. Perhaps your view on internal family politics, any hopes and goals you might have, or even a thought as to what sort of match your family is seeking for you." He smirked, giving him a sidelong glance. "Or perhaps she was looking to invite you to her quarters tonight for a more private discussion." Rian's cheeks flushed at the prospect. Whatever his family's concern with House Gazif were, Skrilla was not an unattractive woman. An imagined vision of her undoing the back of that red dress of hers and the straps sliding down bare shoulders filled his head for a long moment. A moment perhaps too long. As Soren began to chuckle, "Ah, the young, so easily undone at the first glimpse of skin. You do realize I didn't actually say anything of that sort, yes? But I meant nothing more than she'd ask the chance to talk to you more privately. Of course, it would not be much of a problem for you if she were to bed you. For her, she were to bed you," Soren mused, stroking his chin. "She and the old goat already have a confirmed heir anyway, after all, so what's the harm?" The end for now. If you enjoyed this read aloud, let me know. I'll try to do more in the future. Thank you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.